I'm here with Chris Merola, writer and director of Lemonade Blessing. I guess the first thing that kind of struck me, actually, it wasn't the first thing that struck me about this movie. The first thing that struck me is that the adult characters, I wanted to choke almost all of them. And then about halfway through the movie, I'm like, this is child abuse, like what every adult is doing to this poor child.
Yeah.
And what was kind of your thoughts and intentions going into this?
I it was really important that I tried as much as possible to just render like the most truthful story possible while trying to be like honest to the fact that every character is the protagonist of their own story. And there really are people who take their faith so seriously for whatever reason. They may have suffered some sort of psychological trauma or some sort of pain, and then they cling to faith like a life raft. Maybe there's someone who they really were raised in this environment and it means a lot of security to them. So they cling to that even when there's unsavory elements that involve putting pressure onto others. But I'm very like deterministic about these things. Like I really do think people are often the products of their upbringings. And so I don't really resent anybody for over identifying with religion and kind of putting that on other people. It's a really difficult thing. And yeah, in some cases it probably does qualify as child abuse. But I don't know. When I was making it, I was trying to have empathy for all the characters and just try to see things from where they are so that I could give all of my actors notes so that they're never judging their characters. They're always in the moment. These are people, they're trying their best. And yes, they totally do things that I would not do myself. But I wouldn't have made the film if I didn't think that people like this existed. And so I think it is important to display that truth no matter how it makes people feel. Because there's a total range of reactions we've gotten from, yeah, I want to choke the parents to I empathize with the parents to some degree. So everything in between. And I think that's really good, giving people space to have their own reactions to these things.
I think one of the great things about, especially the older characters in this, is that I did want to choke them, but they're not evil. Like I see where they're coming from. And how many like different drafts or how many different iterations of these characters did it take you to finally get to where these characters finally became in Lemonade Blessing?
That's a great question. I first draft I wrote just by in a notebook. I wrote down memories I had from my youth, and I noticed commonalities between them, like little narrative arc commonalities. And then I would write the scenes out of order depending on what I was in the mood to do, and then I stitched it together. And one thing I'll say about myself is my first drafts are a little myopic in the sense that, yeah, the protagonist is definitely kind of like the smartest one, and everyone else is a little mean and a little simple and a little one dimensional, and it's I guess that's just my own like self-absorption that I need to overcome in the rewriting process where I try to do rewrites where I write the story from the perspective of the other characters where I'm like, let me give them the line of dialogue or the beat that they would get if this was their story and they were the protagonist. And so, yeah, I rewrote it a bunch of times. I think, I don't know, maybe there's like 16, 17 drafts, I would say, but the most significant changes occurred between drafts one and draft six, where I actually combined two characters that became Angelo. Like Angelo was previously two different characters and I combined them into one, stuff like that, little things, just turning things over in your head, trying to make it more visual, like the panic attack sequence was I think like a draft three or draft four thing, that sort of stuff.
Or some early drafts, so maybe scenes or characters or something earlier draft this. I really wish that could have made it in the movie, but it just doesn't work here anymore.
Oh God, I get so many. I'm a very like anxious person. I'm always going over things in my head and like feeling like, oh, should we have done this? Should we have done that? One thing that like occurred early on in the first draft is I just had a kind of cross-cutting sequence like before like page 10 where it just shows John going through his daily life and showing the fact that they do pray in every class and he's kind of bored and disconnected from his classes. And yeah, I think that's one aspect of the film that like was a big part of like my high school experience where like it was actually a very strict school, not just in terms of ethics, but also in terms of academics. And I don't really feel like the film ended up portraying that because it didn't feel 100% essential. And you have to be so ruthless about what you include in the script. So I think that some of the life of what it's like in the classroom was lost a little bit in first draft. And then there's also some scenes that are just like, they were so funny, but they ultimately were harming the tone, the balance between taking these characters seriously and having comedic beats. There was one scene where John's talking to his dad, and his dad's distracted as ever. And he's trying to be like, Dad, I'm getting further with my girlfriend. And the dad's super distracted. And then Angelo calls him and he's like, oh, that's her now. And he's on the phone with Angelo pretending that he's Lilith. And so Angelo's trying to ask him about, hey, can you give me the Bible back? And he's trying to make it sound like they're talking about going and looking basically. And so Pete is like looking up and he's like, what the hell? Like my 15-year-old son is like having sex. And so that was a really funny scene with a lot of double entendres that I really enjoyed enjoyed, but I think it was ultimately not super psychologically incisive. So I did end up cutting it. A lot of jokes had to be cut because it just wasn't as, I think, yeah, it just wasn't as taking this situation seriously as it could have been.
Yeah. I guess one thing that kind of worried me is watching this because the two main actors, I believe they're 21 now. They read as high school children. And so
Yeah.
there's scenes in here where I'm like, what the hell are you doing to these damn children? And then I see they're of age. I'm like, okay, yeah, that this works. But what was kind of that thought process and the casting process? Because you want them to look like high school children, but some of the stuff you're having these guys do in this movie, I would have big problems with if they're actually of the age that they're portraying in the movie.
Absolutely. I think it's a really interesting philosophical and ethical challenge that filmmakers need to answer, which is we know that kids are having sex and they're sexually active before they come of age. We know that's a fact. We've all been young, we've all been there. How do you responsibly portray that in a film that's honest to that experience without trying to make it seem titillating, without taking advantage of any performers who are at that age and would be having underage experiences filmed and broadcast? So the first thing we did was, of course, we decided we were going to cast 18 and older, and we ended up casting people who were like 20 and 22, John and Lilith. And then additionally, we had an intimacy coordinator. We talked extensively about what it was we were doing, and we rehearsed it extensively so that everyone was comfy on set. Of course, we had a closed set so that nobody could look at monitor what was going on. And then additionally, I would say the coverage was designed to be about the emotional experience of this, right? There's no nudity. To me, there are no shots in any of the sex scenes that linger or titillate. It's not like we're doing like Euphoria where like 30-year-olds that are like really conventionally attractive are like having sex on screen, they're naked, but they're portraying high schoolers. To me, that is like vastly more concerning than anything we did here. I feel good. I don't have qualms about what we did here, although I understand it raises hackles for some people, but I hope that answers your question.
Oh yeah, yeah. Once I found out the age of the actors, I'm like, okay, we're safe.
Yeah, of course. Of
But
course.
I mean, there's been movies where I'd watch. I'm like, oh, like my behind the scenes brain turns on. I'm like, how did they do this, and did they do this correctly?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you
which
checking
sounds
in.
like you did.
No, it's good to check in though. Like filmmakers need to be held to like ethical standards. Like we're not just trying to beg, borrow, and steal. Like one of my big things when we were making this is like I told the cast and crew, I was like, if we make a good film, we will have failed. The goal is not to make a good film. The goal is to make a good film while upholding the happiness and health of the cast and crew. And one thing I'm really passionate about, besides just making good films, is like from a producerial perspective, respecting people so that like people don't have the experiences that I had when I was a PA and I was working on film sets, and people are just so mean and disrespectful to people's like common humanity. So I think it's good that you're asking questions like that, and you should keep asking questions like that and hold filmmakers to higher standards because that's the only way that this industry is going to get any better.
Yeah. Well, speaking of good film and sex, not to verbally fillet you too much, but this movie's excellent. And I believe this is your first feature film, which unfortunately for you, you got to follow this up. So yeah,
I'm excited,
you
man.
set a high bar for yourself. What's your next step, or are you even thinking of the next film at this point?
I've got another feature written that I'm storyboarding right now, and I would want Jake to star in it. He knows about it. He hasn't signed on yet because I want the script to be perfect for him. But it's sort of like the father son to Lemonade's mother son, and it takes place in like 2021 during the GameStop short squeeze. It's basically a kid trying to impress his dad by gambling his life savings away on GameStop stock, and then he has to get all the money back before his dad finds out. So it's a bit more of an internety ADHD gambling addiction movie, but I think it'll maintain a lot of the threads of what hopefully people liked about the style of this, while also being something different and a step forward, hopefully, you know.
I think just the idea of having that whole GameStop thing will attract viewers. And yeah, so love Lemonade Blessing. It's premiering at Tribeca Film Festival on what
June
day
5th?
is it? June 5th?
Yes, I'm super stoked. Super stoked.
I don't suppose you have any release plans after that. That's kind of what film festivals are for, right?
We're going there for distro. We got Submarine on as sales agent. They're absolutely incredible. I think they were just showing like teaser. I cut a couple of teasers and they just took it to Cannes and showed it to some distributors. So fingers crossed. I would love to land with a distributor who's going to do limited theatrical and really cares about the film as much as we do, and is going to do the legwork with us to promote it so that we can have a nice limited release, a nice form release.
Yeah. Well, I wish you all the luck because again, this movie's really great, and I see this doing like kind of like a maybe like a ladybird thing where it just kind of comes out of nowhere and everyone's, what the hell is this? This is cool. But I do want to end on this, just get a film recommendation from you. Something that is really personal to you or just something that you like that's like, this movie's really good and no one talks about it.
Ooh, oh my God. Oh, there's so many. Oh, wow. So, okay, I have a couple. Can I do a couple answers? Can I just rapid fire a little bit?
No, you can only, no, you can do as
Okay.
many.
So the sort of like obvious pick that like I really love that's really popular is like Uncut Gems. I feel very seen by the communication style in that movie, for better or worse. Like I was raised in an environment where people were always talking over each other, and so the way that the Safdies do communication is very meaningful to me. One film that is not very personal to me, but I think everyone should watch is like Satan Tango. It's like 7.5 hour slow cinema film by Bella Tarr. It's literally just like a meditative experience, and like you'll sink into your subconscious while you watch it, and you'll just have so many like thoughts about like your life because you're just watching a 10-minute shot of like Eastern Europeans walking through a cobblestone path, and you're like, what is my life? So Satan Tango is excellent. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what else. I'm trying to think. Last year, oh God, everyone should see Nickel Boys. I think Nickel Boys was one of the most like, important films that came out in the last decade. I think it is just one of the most incredible inhabitings of subjectivity that I've seen. And even though obviously, like intersectionally, I don't have that much in common with Ramel Ross, I think that we both have an interest in inhabiting subjectivity. I think Nickel Boys might have been one of the most daring, emotional, and also just ethically responsible inhabitings of subjectivity I've seen in a while, where you literally are simulating what it is like to be treated as a Black person in like Jim Crow era South, which is just like crazy. And I just don't think it got seen enough. So I would tell people to go watch that. I think those are three films. That's my one answer in three. Yeah.
All right. Well, the Satan Tango, I might have to get some mushrooms for that one, sounds like, but
Dude, I fucking love mushrooms. I was the only guy sober watching Satan Tango, man. It was that was everyone was high in the American Cinematheque on that day except me.
well, Chris, thanks for joining me and congratulations on Lemonade Blessing and can't wait for it to come out for everyone to see. I hope the movie's a hit and can't wait to see what else you got in store for us.
Dude, thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. For more movie and television reviews and interviews, please subscribe to my Deepest Dream channel, like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, thanks so much for your support. Take care.